All right, so before I go on, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Agile values, but does anybody have any questions or thoughts about how we did this? Okay, I'm not hearing anything, so I'm going to assume I can go right on ahead. So the original Agile Manifesto, many of you are probably familiar with this. I hope you are. It really acknowledged balance, right? It says very clearly in the caveat, while there is value in the items on the right, we value the items on the left more. That caveat, which I think is very important, often gets overlooked. And so when people are interpreting the Agile, this particular statement, they ignore the balance between these two. And so they'll focus on that word over and interpret it to mean this is good and this is bad, right? This is right and this is wrong. And so when we see common examples of Agile values, when they're portrayed visually, if you just Google it, right, the caveat is nowhere to be found. You just see this fairly straightforward presentation of this over that. And some of the statements even just completely leave out the things on the left altogether in their visualizations. And here's some examples of this misunderstanding. When people think of this as an either or scenario, then they're, when they write their own manifestos, they'll write statements that are very clearly oriented to right and wrong. This is good, this is bad. We should do this, we should not do these other things, which I think is actually not the intent of the original Agile Manifesto writers, because they clearly had balance in mind when they wrote their caveat. And there's some crazy stuff online. This is not really a new concept that there's this problem here. But I came across this dark manifesto, which was put out in 2012, right? So people who actually do the work and have Agile imposed on them sometimes really hate it because they feel like it's dogmatic and it's inflexible. And from their perspective, you know, it doesn't work, and they feel like they don't have the freedom to do their work. So we've known about this problem for a while, and people have been talking about it for a while. What we tried with Agile 2 is we really tried to address this problem head on. So when we developed the Agile values, we decided intentionally to think of the two sides of the equation as a polarity. And for those of you who are not familiar with polarity thinking, the idea is that you're in constant motion, and as you move through the different quadrants here, you have more or less of something. So a simplistic example is, as you get more rest, you feel like you have more energy, so you get up and you go out and you do more and more. And then eventually you get to a point where you're really tired and maybe you're exhausted, and so you have to go back and rest. And so you go back and rest. And the goal of your experience here is not rest and it's not action. It's a balance between the two, right? There could be too much rest or too much action would not be healthy. So you're going to kind of go back and forth between them. And rest and action in and of themselves are not inherently good or bad. So this is what we mean when we talk about our values and principles as being a polarity. The goal is the balance between them. So if you think about the items on the right and left as polarities, it's easier to see how we can go back and forth between them. So for example, we say we value individuals more than processes and tools. A reasonable person, though, might have, be in a situation where there's an exception because the tool that you're using doesn't work, right? And so nobody can get their work done. And you can focus on the individuals all you want, but unless you get a better tool or fix the tool you've got, you can't move forward. So there are going to be circumstances where the tool or maybe even the process really needs to be attended to and needs to be given highest priority temporarily so that you can figure out how to work together and move forward. So I don't think that the original signers of the Agile Manifesto intended for this to be a good or bad situation, but actually intended it to be in balance.